Next up, we have from Better Shelter, all the way from Sweden, Märta Terne.
Hi, I hope that you can hear me. Um, my name is Märta, and I'm here from Better Shelter. We're a Swedish social enterprise, and we've been developing refugee shelters for refugee camps all over the world for the last 10 years, together with IKEA Foundation and UNHCR. And these types of shelters are used when there are no local materials available, wood or bamboo or whatever you have. So just as tents, they're sent in after an emergency when a lot of people need somewhere to stay for the night, basically, and probably for many years to come. And these shelters are used as accommodation all over the world, and they look very differently depending on where they're used. They have to be scalable for different contexts, for different family situations, and they also have to fulfill very contradictory expectations. They have to be temporary but feel permanent. They have to be last a lot longer than tents, for example. And there are a lot of protected refugee situations in the world now. Kakuma and Dadaab, for example, in Kenya have been around since the 90s. So people need to live in these very temporary shelters for 10, 20, 30 years, for example. So we started working on these 10 years ago in Sweden, where we did a lot of prototyping and we tested many different solutions off-site, so not in refugee camps, so far away from where they would actually be used. And then after about 5 years, we started testing them in the field. And this is when we noticed that everything that we had presumed we would have to change, because people ended up using the shelters in completely different ways. For example, people turned the windows upside down so that you would get an airflow further down where the children slept. So after prototyping in the field, we came back to the drawing board and kept working on them for another 3 years, basically. And something that you as a designer have to think about is to always relate to the user at the same time as you have to be very humble to the fact that you know very little about their situation. These people, these children, for example, 5 siblings who came to a camp without their parents, so they're completely on their own. But they share some of the basic needs with us here, and those are the ones that we have to focus on as designers. This woman lives in Iraq, and she has her own business in her camp where she makes dresses because her husband died, so she has to make the money herself to provide for her family. So what we've noticed is that people use the shelters in many, many different ways. This is a clinic in Nepal, which was set up by Doctors Without Borders, and all of a sudden they started asking new questions to us that we didn't know the answers to, because these were developed as accommodation and not as clinics. So this is also something they have to be aware of all the time, that the brief will change. Today, they have been painted as murals as well, so they've become a permanent fixture in a lot of camps, and they've been used as classrooms, staff accommodation, registration centers. And something that we've also noticed is that innovation equals failure. And this is something that is discussed a lot, but it's very true. And we've failed so much during the last 10 years, but that's also what brings you further. But you really have to be aware of that. And you also have to be aware of the fact that your design is never ever finished. And you will always have to keep developing it, because the world is an ever-changing place, especially today, and especially when it comes to humanitarian aid. Another important thing is to collaborate. And this is a few colleagues of mine working on a factory floor in Sweden, testing the panels that we use for the walls and the roof. And failure becomes a lot easier also if you're not on your own. And we also collaborate very closely with our partners out in the field, with UNHCR, with Doctors Without Borders, because they are the experts. Where we come in with a design focus, they can actually tell us what it's actually like and which are the real needs. And something that we think about every day is that we have to relate and we have to act out of solidarity with these people at the same time as we have to stay humble to the fact that we cannot relate to their situation at all. But we have to keep working on making their life in this temporary permanence as good as we can until the day that they can return home, which is hopefully something that they will. And finally, I just like to say that for us in a very privileged situation, everyone in here, I think we all have to do something, and we will have the privilege and the responsibility to do something. Whether you do it during your office hours or after work, or whether you do it through design or in any other way. Yeah, that's me. I'm done. Thanks.
Thank you, Märta. Um, I couldn't have finished it with any better words than what she said, echoing her sentiments that we all have a role to play, we all have a responsibility, whether it's during your working hours or after work. The music is gonna come back on. Please do interact. Feel free. We'll be around that table and this table from the Nairobi Design Week team. We have ideas seated over there. I can only see that far. So creatives, please identify yourselves so people can talk to you.